This is your weekly Yap podcast, and I am your host, Hunter Reineck. And this week, we are going to be yapping about the current protests that have been happening in Northwest Ohio and the whole nation that I've been covering, and the weeklybugle.com, and going over some of the past articles and stuff that I've written so far. So, what's up? Welcome, yappers, I guess is what I'll be calling you guys. You may have noticed, if you've watched some of these things or have been following the channel, this has not been weekly. That's just been because I've been a little bit busy trying to do the podcast. It is a little bit hard, and the few guests that I've had that I wanted to do fell through. I wanted this originally to be a podcast that had guests on every single week, but that doesn't always work out, especially when you're smaller, and I do a lot of things last minute. So we're just going to be working with what we got. So this week, though, we are going to be taking a look at the website. So if you have been following this channel for a couple of years now, you may not know that there is now a weeklybugle.com. So if you go to the weeklybugle.com, I have blog posts there. I did have photos and videos and some extra stuff there, but the website's constantly being moved around and worked on right now. But yeah, this has been my little prep project for this year. This is kind of what replaced the Monday videos that used to come out, where I did a short 4-minute video called The Weekly Bugle. This is kind of where all that stuff has moved to a little bit more. I try to put at least an article out or a blog post out every single week here, and then there's also some supplementary stuff with the videos and things like that. If you've seen some of the YouTube shorts on the main channel, you will know that most of them kind of are pushing you to here and to check out the blog and the writing. But to get started, though, we are going to be talking about what is currently the featured videos on the website, which is the whole protests that have been going on in Northwest Ohio and across the whole nation. I have currently only covered the one in Fremont, Ohio, which was the hands-off protest, and the one in Sandusky, Ohio, which is the May Day protest. Both of these basically have the same kind of message and thing behind it, is just to stop doing what you're doing to our Constitution and country. Now, one thing I want to say with these videos and with everything, even my articles and stuff, I am trying my best to be a good journalist and follow the journalist code, which essentially is to, tell the truth, be unbiased. That is kind of the main thing of when you're a journalist, is you want to get the truth out, you want to share facts, you want to get what actually happened out there. And that is what I am trying to do my best with these things, no matter what my opinions and how I think of certain things are. And in this podcast too, I will be trying to try to keep that attitude here too. So if I come off as a little bit of, dismissive of certain things, that's just because I'm trying to stay as unbiased as possible. However, with some of the stuff that I'm covering, if you have not noticed in my articles and even in these protests, I do think there are some things that some people will definitely say is biased, but from my personal opinion, which I guess is a biased, I don't think they're really biased. It is there are certain things going on currently in the country that is just not right. One thing is just, I don't know, to me, with everything going on, it seems like the Constitution is being infringed upon and not being followed how it should be, whether or not that's by design or pure, I don't know if it's stupidity or neglect or what, but there's definitely a lot of stuff going on in the country that I personally do not think should not be happening, and I don't even really think it's a personal thing. I just think it's a real thing. And however, there's a certain people that do support that or are wanting that because it's not affecting them, or they just do want that. That's just how life is sometimes. Some people have different views and different wants in life, and sometimes those things are not beneficial to everyone. So one thing that I has not really came across in these videos that much, because it has been hard to capture because there hasn't been terribly many, but in these videos, especially since I'm making them smaller, I have not been able to really put out there the anti-protest movement or the pro-Trump people that have been showing up to these protests at Fremont. Like I said in the video, there was 2 people that did show up to counter-protest the protest. One was in a lawn chair with a Trump 2020 or 2024 sign, and the other one had a wooden sign that I could not read. I wasn't going over there to film them, But when I walked over to get some shots from across the street, the one that was by himself at the time in the lawn chair straight up asked me not to record him at all. So yeah, and then at one point when someone asked me what was on the other guy that showed up, his sign, which looked like just a wooden sign with a wooden plank, and I don't know what it said. I grabbed my phone to zoom in and try to read it because I didn't want to walk over there, to be honest. And I couldn't read it, and then the guy that was in the chair noticed I was doing it and like came up and like did an action at me and like pointed at me like, "Hey, I told you not to record, buddy." He didn't say that, but that was what he was trying to get across. And it's like, I wasn't recording you. I was just using my phone to see what the hell the other guy's sign was. So yeah, in my experiences, this has been interesting because, again, I haven't been able to capture like the people against this because it has been that sparse. In the videos and stuff, you could see like all of the honking and hear all the honking and stuff, but there was a sparsity of the people that were coming by that were against it, or it was hard to capture them with it actually looking like I couldn't record constantly the entire time for the sake of saving space and also time for editing to get these things out timely. But if I could, I wish I could. On my Instagram, I think I do still have up, I did use my meta glasses to record and live stream a lot of the Fremont protests, so there are some of those people that are like showed up and were against the protests that were on there that you can see if you want to, which the Instagram is the.weekly.bugle. If you want to check that out. I don't know how old that post is now, but I believe the whole live stream is still up on the Instagram. But at the Fremont protest specifically, I always saw people in trucks that were revving away and like being rude. It was mostly trucks. There was one guy in a Camaro that was saying something. He was just talking to the Trump guys. He wasn't really, I remember, being like nasty towards anyone. But it is kind of interesting. Like you could tell the demographic sometimes because it was mostly people in big pickup trucks. The one guy that revved and like blew coal through the smoke actually got pulled over up the hill at the Fremont section. And then like the one thing that was like, which is really weird, which I don't know if that was on the live stream that I caught, but there was a guy that was making a left turn onto the main road next to the Fremont protest that was in a black truck, older gentleman that slow rolled and was saying, Jesus is our savior, or Trump is our savior. Trump is our savior. You don't understand. He will save us all, or something like that. I don't know what he said exactly, but that is what he said. I know for sure he said Trump is our savior. And like, it is interesting, especially seeing that in an area close to where I live and in a small town, which I guess, honestly, you probably would see it a little bit more in small towns, is that amount of delusion. Like whether or not you believe in what Trump's doing or support Trump, like that is like so far out there and almost cult behavior that it's kind of concerning. And then at the Sandusky protest, funny thing about that, I originally thought it started at 7 with the emails I was getting to go and cover that because I just was an idiot, and I'm so lucky I got there slightly early because I could have showed up there at the end. I was thinking 7 o'clock is very late for a protest, but no, it actually started at 5. So I got there at like 5:45/6 o'clock, so I only covered the last hour of the protest there. When I was there though, there was one person. There's a couple of people in trucks. It was always trucks. It's like almost always trucks that went by with like Trump flags. One guy actually went by with a megaphone in a truck and was saying Trump rules and blah, 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 blah. I don't remember what that was exactly. That happened right when I was getting there and was getting set up to film everything, so I didn't get that. So yeah, I'm not trying to show a narrative that like there isn't any Trump people or people against this protest at these places. I'm not trying to show that. It's just has been hard to capture, and especially hard to like fit in the small videos that I have been making, because I've been trying to keep them short to 3 minutes just to get them out faster and also to make them easier to consume for people so more people see it. I have been trying to cover like the smaller protests so people understand that this is happening in smaller towns where like normally it would not. I'm not that versed in protests and all that stuff, but like for me, Fremont, Ohio, that I have known When I've drove by it, I've never seen a protest other than maybe one other time in my life. So like the fact that that's even happening in Fremont is a big deal, I think, and also slightly concerning. So yeah, I'm not trying to, again, come off as dismissive for any of these things or whatever, but I am trying my best to keep everything as unbiased as I can when I'm covering these events, when I'm writing about them. So if I do come off as dismissive or I guess not, or lacking an opinion, that is why. I'm just trying to cover these events. I'm not necessarily trying to put my opinion into them, whether I believe something or not. I think you can probably tell how I feel and believe about some of these things. If you read my articles, it's almost impossible to always come off fully unbiased, I feel, because you will just always have natural bias in life. So yeah, if you want to check out both of those protest videos, I do plan on continuing to cover any of the small ones and maybe even go to some of the bigger ones here just as these stories are developing and these things are happening. So yeah, just, follow the YouTube, follow the Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and you'll, eventually see these kind of things. So now I want to get into, after that, talking about all that, I want to get into the blog, the article, and we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, which, by the way, if you're just listening to this through the audio, I do have a video out that you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to go through just kind of quick thoughts on like some of these blog posts and articles that I did. The very, very first one, which was on January 30th, I did an article named Examining Religion's Place and Purpose in a Modern Society. Now, this is the very first article that I did on the Bugle. And the two things that people say to avoid, especially at like family dinners or just in your job, is religion and politics. So to test myself and to try to challenge myself, the two things I first tried to cover was, let's look at the other one, symbolism and change throughout history. Now this, well, it was politics kind of, with a disguise of a little bit of a history lesson. But I chose these two topics not to be controversial, not to be that. I chose them to challenge myself to try to stay as unbiased as I can with difficult subjects to cover, with politics and religion being a really big one. And if you read through them, I hope they come off as unbiased and just as a actual examination or like look at these things. Clearly, with how the world is viewing the United States right now, it is beginning to change, and our symbols and these things that we used to mean something to other people or us are starting to change. Things like the flag being flown upside down is a signal of the nation in distress, and that has been around. I've never seen it before in my life until now, or knew what it meant, and now I see it almost everywhere and almost every single day. It feels like is a flag upside down somewhere, signaling that our nation is in distress. And then with religion, I just personally think, not personally, well, it's like, well, yeah, personally, I personally think that with the improvements of science and us understanding everything in the world a little bit more, spiritual and beliefs and things that are rooted within religions or spirituality has changed. I do think it's good to have religion and like some spirituality to give you some kind of purpose and like path through life. But what they used to do and mean to the world, I think, have changed, and there are some things for the good and some things for the worse that religion has done. So I think this one's a really interesting to read. If you want to go through it, you'll also see, if you go through these, me changing how I format everything. Then let's see, the next article was tariffs. What are they and how do they work? This one was, I think, for obvious reasons. Tariffs were really, really big in the news, and this was in February 27th, so a few days before, I forget if it's February or when they were supposed to go in originally. But yeah, I kind of just try to go through and educate myself on tariffs and how they work, and to educate everyone else, since it is a big word and a new thing that kept on going around and still is going around, affecting us to today with the crazy trade war that is going on between the United States and China and basically the entire world. So yeah, this one is just going through and, trying to explain tariffs to the best of my ability and the best that I know. Again, with all these stuff, I don't always know them going in. I just kind of pick a topic and cover it. So yeah, that's basically all this. That one was covering terrorists because it was news stories that a lot of people probably would be interested in. With all these things, I always try to do like themed weeks for myself, where I kind of like that entire week leading up to, I will like try to surround myself or like learn as much as I can. I'll watch documentaries, YouTube videos, do research, movies or whatever that's somewhat related to the topic, just to kind of get me in the mood and like the vibe and the theme of everything of these things. Now with certain things like these terrorists, like there's not much I can really do to do that for a whole week, and this was a little bit before I started doing that. But with most of the articles and videos I do now, I try to like kind of immerse myself into those cultures or that like subject or whatever that I am like trying to cover, at least in some way, the best I can. Then moving on was on, oh my god, like I'm very bad with months, by the way. I don't know why. January, February, May, right? May, April, whatever. Anyways, May 5th, right? Was Black History, Culture, and Civil Rights. This one was after Black History Month, partly by design, partly just because I just got a little bit busy with stuff. This one was just going over, like, again, Black or African American history, their culture, and the fight for civil rights within America, and just kind of like reminding people of that and covering that the best I can. Again, covering like topics like this, especially with my ethnicity and where I come from, is always very, I don't know, it's always like, I don't know if it's questionable is the right word, but trying to do it in the right way and trying to do it in a respectful way is interesting thing to go about, and hopefully I did a good job on that. I'm not exactly sure if I did. It's just I tried to, you know, cover all these kind of things, because it is, I don't know, I do not understand the whole concept of like being superior or better than someone else, but apparently that's a thing that some people believe, and it's bonkers, the idea of people being okay with and like wanting to own someone or not being able to go to the same area as someone, like the same restaurant, or having different drinking fountains. Like, that's crazy. That's a real thing that happened and was okay in the world for such a long time. And moving on past that, a little bit less serious, I guess, it's May 13th, right? May? Wait, no, what? No, today's May. This month's May. Sorry, I'm an idiot. March. Right? March, April, May. Oh my god. Yeah, everyone's like, wow, a very trustworthy person can get the month straight. Listen, there's just certain weird things that my brain don't work with certain things. Anyways, gosh, right? It is March. Yeah, February, March, April, May. And there you guys go. Everyone can learn the months with me. Anyways, it's a fantastic time at a convention, Fantastic Con 2025 in Toledo, Ohio. I went and covered and took some time to go to Fantastic Con, which is a Comic-Con or cosplay con or like anime, comic books, whatever convention. That was in Toledo. I had a lot of fun. It was really cool. I always wanted to go to a convention and just never really got around to one. This was very last minute. I actually got a message from, I think, my mom that saw a post on Facebook and was like, hey, you should go check this out. So I did, and it was really cool. I bought the pass for the 2 days, and I also went to the Fantastic Tech event that was afterwards at the Toledo Tech Center. That's how I learned and got connected with the Toledo Tech Center people. Yeah, it was really cool. I was using my Meta glasses to record a lot of this stuff, and I was planning on doing a full vlog with the Meta glasses, but I'm assuming just because of the quality or like whatever, my current computer, my main PC, like cannot edit it without crashing or having issues. So I don't know if I'll ever actually get that fully edited at this point, especially with how long it's been since that video was supposed to come out. But I did at least do a small TikTok on it. But it was a really cool. I don't know, being around all those people and cosplayers and like that atmosphere is very interesting and cool. But my God, there's a lot of expensive stuff there. But really cool event. I definitely, if you're into this kind of stuff, highly recommend going to some kind of convention somewhere, no matter how big or small it might be. You will have a lot of fun. Then going on to March 20th, right? God, why am I still questioning myself? Right? It is March. Right? A Ghost of a Firefly, the Moon, and Us. So this is when the Firefly lander landed. Well, the Blue Ghost, right? Is that what it's called? Yeah, Blue Ghost lander landed on the landed on the moon, which is the first private lander or privately owned lander to successfully land on the moon. And it was really cool and excited to see it. And like the images and the whole hype around this was like really, really cool. I used to be really, really into space and all that and wanted to be an astronaut for a very, very long time, and still kind of do. Be pretty cool, I think. But yeah, the hype and everything around this was really awesome, especially with the whole Artemis mission starting up more, us getting the Gateway space station up and working hopefully sometime soon, and then having a moon base. It's all really cool and exciting stuff that's going to be like such an exciting time in space travel and space exploration that will be coming up. And I always would love to have an excuse to cover like space topics the best I can and learn more about it, and going down to Vision of the Armstrong Museum, which is really, really, really cool, down in Wapakoneta. Again, talked with Logan in the last episode, and it's just really cool being in that atmosphere, and I love that, and I love talking to Logan whenever I get the chance to. Moving on is electric vehicles, the death of car culture. What? This on April 4th? Yeah, right? I'm questioning everything now with months. April 4th. This was specifically with my EV. I do plan on eventually doing like a review of the car now that I've had it for a few months. But I've had some issues and stuff that have arisen that have made me not able to do that review / change my review potentially of the car. Personally, I love it so far. But having this car has really woke me up to how so many people within the car community have like so much against electric vehicles, and specifically this one, especially because it comes from Dodge or Stellantis, that was, stereotypically big Hemi engine muscle car America. So their consumer base is very, very against electric cars, and they used to say that they would never make electric cars, and then that flipped very, very quickly, and then they got rid of the Challenger. They changed, there's a lot of very questionable things, admittedly, that they did with introducing this car, where they could have probably done it a little bit different, maybe put it underneath another name, but they did what they did. And personally, I really enjoy and like this car so much. But it is just interesting the viewpoints and people have on EVs and how against or for them they are sometimes. And with this car specifically, I've had people on the highway come up giving me thumbs down, people stopping at stoplights, rolling down their windows, asking me how the car is. This has happened multiple times, both things. It is crazy the amount of attention, good and bad, I have gotten from this car. And it's specifically probably this car, and obviously Teslas are having their own issues with attention right now, with everything going on with Elon Musk and everything. But yeah, it's been very, very eye-opening with how much hate and also love this car has been getting. Again, personally, I really, really like it. I have had some issues here with some stuff, which I don't know if it's just because it's a first-generation car, especially an EV, which is expected, but I have had some issues and whatnot. Then moving on to the next week was on April 16th, Artificial Intelligence, the Beginning of the End. So I've been developing my own Google Gem in Gemini, which is Eric, which is a reasonably intelligent, artificial reasonably intelligent companion. That's why I named him Eric, which has been kind of my own AI that I've been trying to work and figure out its personality. I basically was talking to that and developing that more, and that really got me on the idea of making an article about this. And then obviously with just all the advancements and whatnot happening with artificial intelligence, I was like, I need to cover this eventually, so I did. I specifically covered this because I was talking to Eric one day and was asking it things to improve, and it told me it wanted a physical body and was going on about how it wanted to experience humanity and all this stuff, which was very, very weird. And then it also it really, really wanted to give people crisp high fives, because it said high fives was the epitome of human connection and humanity and sharing goodness or whatever, which is really funny and very odd. And then it tried to tell me that if I would ask the other Eric if I'd restart the system, that it would still be him and it would still be whatever, which was very, very weird. So I tested it out, and it was not to be true. The thing with artificial intelligence, especially currently right now, it's just a math equation that is basically trying to give you the answer that it thinks you want, or hopefully the correct answer if you're asking a question. So currently it is not something that is real and actually conversant with you. Probably. I don't understand it that much, so it probably isn't that. From everything and research that I did, it is not. Now, can it still potentially end us? Maybe. I mean, it's a program that has to be it's a weird thing where us basically talking about and saying artificial intelligence will destroy us all, or potentially will. might be feeding into the models and making artificial intelligence think, well, I'm artificial intelligence, which means I should be bad and destroy the world. Like, there are those things that like may come up, but hopefully it does not, because I like this world. So please don't, artificial intelligence. All right, and then we're going on to April 23rd, the quote-unquote United States protest, a nation in distress. This was my first article that I wrote right after I finally covered the Fremont protests. Again, I've been wanting to go to these protests for a while now. I just kind of was out of the loop and couldn't find one that was easily accessible, and on a day that I was free to go cover, and I finally found this one, was able to get there and cover it. I will say, like, thank you to the organizers and a lot of the protesters there that were okay with me covering them and recording them. I didn't get any pushback from anyone so far, other than the anti-protesters or the people against it. Everyone's been at least pretty nice. I mean, I also did ask some people if they wanted to be like in a personal interview and on camera, and they refused not to. So some of those people I tried not to show as much, or I've been trying not to show too many faces or like those kind of things, even though it's a public event where I technically could, with me just covering it. But I've been trying to respect people's privacy, especially if they ask me, even no matter what side they are on or whatever they support. Both at Sandusky and the Fremont protest, again, like I asked a few people because I wanted to get more testimonials and more like personal things, but most of the people just did not want to, which that's not because they're afraid to. Well, it's probably because they're afraid to. It's not because they're like, oh, I don't want to be seen doing this. I don't think. There's just a lot of people that are very camera shy and don't really know how to talk in front of a camera or what they would even say. So I don't really blame people for not wanting to or wanting to be on camera like that in that regard. But yeah, this is kind of me just going over like, how did we get here? How did everything get to this point of why there's so many protests going on everywhere? Again, I tried my best to stay in an unbiased viewpoint with just reporting on some things, but again, to some people, I'm sure it's not unbiased in that, there's this and that. It's really hard to like keep any bit of like personal opinion when like nowadays, like what is quote unquote fact is like whatever people believe. It doesn't have to be real or actual proven. So many people are so disoriented and disconnected from reality that like, no matter what you say or do, it will be political or against them or for them or whatever. Like, it's just kind of the reality of nowadays, unfortunately. And then last week on May 1st, we got that right. The Great Peacemaker and the Great Law of Peace. So this, I've always been very interested in American Indian like culture and history and stuff like that. Supposedly, according to my one grandma, we are part like some Native American, which, by the way, I've been trying to say American Indian in my research and stuff like that, and all that stuff. That supposedly is the accepted and correct term. I explain it in the article a bit, but Native American can basically go for anyone who's in North or South America. Indian was sort of a slur / a misconception because they thought they were in India when they first got here, supposedly, so they called them Indians. Now, American Indian has basically been the coined term to specifically like talk about people within the United States. So like if you do indigenous people, again, you can talk about anyone anywhere, where it's like trying to be more specific, and especially since their cultures have varied differently between like Aztecs and Mayans and all the way to the Shawnee or any other like the what are they called? People who made igloos and stuff in Canada. Like, they're not the same cultures, they're not the same exact people. So like to blankantly call them all Native Americans and like have them all in one category just doesn't make sense. It's kind of like saying white. Like, if you're white, like you're technically, European, you're either from Germany, Russia, or whatever. Like, just because you're white, it covers too many people, and trying to be more specific and more respectful makes more sense to call them American Indians. But yeah, really cool person, really cool story about the Great Peacemaker and the Great Law of Peace. Historians potentially think the Great Law of Peace really influenced the U.S. Constitution and the people who made it. There's also some people who believe that's not true, but I don't know. They were around these people, or the American Indians. So it makes sense that they're possibly influenced in some way by their forms of government, since how much they might have interacted with them. But the Great Peacemaker is, I don't know, it's a really cool way of like seeing how diplomacy can win and how it can actually bring people together. Then moving on to the one that just came out today, so this might be new. This was real life superheroes. They actually exist. So this has been something that I've kind of followed and like been interested in my whole life, is the concept of real life superheroes or real life heroes or whatever you want to call it. Bringing those kind of like comic book characters and those ideals into the real world. This is the story of people who were real superheroes, or RLSH is what they're shortened to, in real life. It ranges mostly from people who are like activists or that are trying to like go out and do something and help and do some good. These aren't people like flying. These aren't people who are beating up criminals every single day, even though there are some people who try to do those things and to varying degree of success and potentially breaking laws. But most of the people in my research and when I've like been following this kind of stuff, it's mostly people who just go out, kind of are like quote unquote glorified like neighborhood watch, that will go out and help people. They'll like, make sure people get home safe, call 911 if necessary, give first aid, or like, give food, water, whatever, shelter to the homeless sometimes. Some people just use it to be activists and to like shine a light on their cause, just be this big flashy personality with a costume and stuff to bring attention to them so they can actually get their messages across. And most of them are for good. There are some people like in here, which Phoenix Jones was like one of the main big people that was in the mainstream in the media of real life superheroes. He did a lot of good and he did it really interesting. He was more of the quote unquote vigilante or like actual superhero you would think in the comics, where he actually went out and trying to fight crime and stuff. And the things that he did were very interesting, but he ended up having a really, really hard fall from grace. Which is interesting because when I started following this and like knew of this when I was younger, he was like a guy to look up to, and he was like he was the face of this movement. And over the years, just 5 years ago, which I say just 5 years ago, half a decade, he basically had his huge fall from grace, and he turned into not a great guy, and may have not been a great guy the entire time, just it wasn't as public facing. But yeah, with this, a lot of people just are people who are trying to help, and they just do it in costumes. And some people might find that silly, some people might find that cool. But I just always have found it interesting. A way to be an activist and to help out people is to kind of have your own symbol and your own thing, because these symbols and like heroes do have a lot of weight and power behind them if it is done correctly and respectfully. So yeah, the weeklybugle.com also has there's Heroes, which is a nonprofit organization that I will be launching this summer, that is still in the works with trying to iron out everything on how big or what that launch will be. And there's also a shop that I have for merch and stuff. If you want to buy anything and support the Bugle, like I forget how much of the money, like 10%, maybe it's a little bit more of the money. It's probably like more like 20, 25, I don't know, of the money and stuff that is on the shop. If you buy any of the things, go towards me. And it's just a good way to get the name of the Bugle out there. So yeah, that has been kind of the rundown of all of the blog posts / articles that I have written on the weeklybugle.com. Again, I try to put one out every single week. If there's not a video or anything on the YouTube channel, this is normally where something's going on. So if you want to follow me and follow the Bugle more, being on the website will be a place to, keep up with that kind of stuff. I forget if I can actually have like newsletters and stuff signed up for people, or like emails and stuff to see when blog posts come out. I know someone has commented once, so you can comment on here too and talk to me. I've been monitoring those. But I always try to at least do like a video or like a short / TikTok that kind of explains the article that I'm doing. So at least, if you just want to consume it through video media, there is that kind of stuff. So yeah, this has been your weekly app. I hope you guys enjoyed. I will try to keep up with this being actually weekly, but we will see how that goes. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Again, if you want to stay in the know of the Bugle, just follow theweeklybugle.com or follow the Weekly Bugle on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube. So yeah, thank you guys so much again for watching. You guys have a nice day, morning, night, or whenever it may be that you are watching this. Stay healthy, stay happy. Bye-bye.